I'm Sara, and I'm 21. And I sort of made this channel because I was like, I feel like transitioning from a girl to a woman at this point in time, we're sort of in a limbo-y position. There's like a lot going on and stuff has improved from the past, but we're not quite there yet. So I think it's quite a difficult time for us to be transitioning. And I found it really difficult this year. And I think that's why I've become so passionate about it. But I think it's only right that we start the channel talking about negative connotations of feminists, because we all in some way identify as feminists. And I know that even in the recent past few weeks, I've been called many names by just being a feminist. I also got told to shut up at dinner because apparently no one wants to talk about it.
At dinner with your family?
Yeah. So I recently read this book, amazing, called I Hate Men by Pauline Armor.
Is the book mainly about negative connotations?
Not specifically, but in the first page, she literally says that she wrote a blog like years ago about feeling like fed up with like a patriarchal society. And I will quote you exactly what someone commented on the blog, a man, ready? But maybe you should ask yourself why men don't want to talk about it. A few possibilities: the aggressive, hate-filled even attitude of feminists towards any man who does not say, I am ashamed of being a man, down with men. The day you accept the relationship between men and women for what it is, then we will listen to you. In the meantime, you're just going to be dismissed as sex-starved shrews, and you'll keep doing a disservice to your cause. That was a comment she got on her blog. So she basically was like, hell no, not having that. And she talks about how she's been called a sex-starved shrew, a lesbian, a misandrist, a dyke, a hysteric, all these different words, like just for pretty much sticking up for her gender.
I do have a question about the book because I haven't read the book. I have no idea what it's about. Obviously, I've heard you talk about it and stuff, but that's not a lot. I have a problem with the title. And I don't know whether it's ironic or whether it's just to catch the attention of people walking by thinking they should buy it. But I have a problem with the title. I think that it's, I don't think it's funny. I don't think it's intriguing. I mean, as a feminist book, if anything, it just goes backwards. Like it's going backwards. It's not helpful at all that the first feminist book we're talking about is called I Hate Men. I think that's awful. I
think that is a very, very fair point. And actually, I had this book out, like, just in my house, and my brother went, that's nice.
Yeah.
And I went, do you know what, though? Like, personally, what I got from the book wasn't, she openly admits she hates men. But she's married to one. And she loves her husband, she loves the men in her life, but she hates men. What she highlights is why society is the way it is and how men have been socially conditioned through generations and generations of like a patriarchal society that's been around for decades, like years. And like she more hates the sort of, what I gain from it anyway is she more hates society's expectations of, or like society's image of a man and how the image of a man has affected society's image of a woman, because she's sort of implying that it's like a knock-on effect. But
I do think it's a knock-on effect, absolutely, yeah.
I totally agree with Ella, because I think if I Hate Men is the message that feminists are putting out there in a book form or just kind of saying these kinds of things on social media, then the men are going to feel wounded and feel like we're putting them down, when really what we're trying to do is get us on a level,
yeah.
And we're not trying to be on a pedestal above them, which I think is a lot of the root of the problem, because a lot of men kind of think we want to be better than them, but we just want to be the same.
No, I'd agree, definitely. And I think
damaging.
It's the whole point of why, there's like we can be called the feminazi, and they're like, oh, there's feminists and then there's feminazis, and there's like different degrees to feminism and stuff. And I'm like, I think we all want the same thing. And actually there is a YouTube video where it's like, I think it's called like Curb Your Feminism. I think I might have sent it to you guys, where a woman is saying like very much the same thing as you, Ellie. And then they ask, as like a group of women, they ask them to stand whether it's strongly disagree, don't know, agree, strongly agree on the question of would the world be better run by women? And this one woman that said that we're trying to be on an equal pedestal went straight to strongly agree, saying, yeah, it would be 100% better if women run the world. And someone on the strongly disagree point just said, well, you've just completely like backtracked on your initial comment, because how is that any different from saying the world would be better run by men? Like, do you know what I mean? So I do understand what you mean. However, I would say, and I do agree with it, I don't know if it's right or wrong in your opinion, but something that Pauline highlights on a lot of the time is like, yes, men do feel victimized, and it's not by any stretch of imagination all men. I think there's some men that really do try and understand and try and listen. But she's taking the very extreme level, and she's saying that like men find it really difficult. And actually one quote is, and I'll quote it, I'll read it directly. It says, apparently with all this feminist bullshit, Me Too movement and the rest of that crap, it's really hard to be a man nowadays. Don't know how to flirt anymore, how to get a lift with the female colleagues, or how to crack a joke. What do men still have the right to do now? And I feel like I kind of agree with that. I don't know about you guys, but it's almost like implying it's our fault now that men are finding it so hard, but it was men that put us in that position in the first place.
Men are finding it hard to be basically like just chivalrous and just nice and just a decent person. Like, if you think it's awkward to get a lift with your female colleague, then maybe you don't have that kind of a good relationship with that female colleague. If you feel like a female is scared of you, or a female won't want to be in an enclosed space with you, then maybe you need to address what you're doing and make yourself more approachable and more comfortable. Like, that's not our problem. Exactly. That you feel uncomfortable with how we might react to your actions. I hope I said that right.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. And I'd say like the whole thing is, I think she is going from the extreme, and I think the title is purely wow, like it's
definitely meant to be provocative, that title.
Definitely 100%. And it's the reason I chose the book.
It's really leads into like some random man that I've never met before said the sentence to me, men have no rights, literally like 2 days ago, because he said, you know, in this day and age it's really hard for a man to want to get into a relationship with a woman because they have no rights, they don't know what they can do, she might take their kids away, like, because they think that the women have all the power now. And that I still feel that's a very small-minded view, but it is the view of a lot of men. And I think that the title of that book could change a lot of people's minds into that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Because they might think like, oh, I hate men, that's it, like women want to be up here, push men to the bottom.
Yeah, I think strangely, I feel like it's from my experience anyway, especially from reading this book, and before actually getting all defensive and like, whoa, they don't actually stop to think of why the I hate men might be there. They don't think, well, why do you hate men? What have we done? They don't want to educate themselves first before being like, well,
to be fair, I will say that it's the title of a book. Like, it's supposed to be sort of like short and catchy and like summarizing the contents of the book. And if a guy handed me a book that said, I hate women, I wouldn't think, oh, why do you hate women? I wonder if you had a difficult childhood. I would just be like, okay, well, this guy doesn't like women, like full stop. That's why I have an issue with the title. I don't think it's helpful at all to the cause. And I want to read it, but not as much as I would read other more factual, more open-minded stuff. I think that it's just, I don't know, there's something about it that just makes me think,
it's very really standoffish. Like, I do know what you mean, and it's a very good point. I mean, I would highly recommend reading it, because even though it is the extreme, it does explain a lot of things. It is the extreme. I won't lie and say it's not, but it is.
I think I personally think that feminism is for both men and women. I think all of us on an individual level have possibly suppressed parts of ourselves that are masculine or feminine. And I think it's about like awareness and bringing that to the surface, because I think men are equally, well, not maybe not equally, but they are also affected by this. They might not have the awareness around that, but society does affect the way that we look at ourselves, either male or female, and these labels that we carry around with us. So I think the problem lies there too.
100%. I think men feel a lot of pressure as well to, like you're saying, like she almost says as well, is there is a lot of stuff, and when you are so aware as a girl, even just a simple hello could be deemed as like waving a pervert. Like, do you know what I mean? And like, I get I get it, and I understand from both parts, and I also understand that like it's not, I don't blame anyone here. I don't blame men or women. I don't know about you guys, but I think it's a generational thing. Back in years ago, it was never, yeah, there are some men and some women that go out there and purposefully try and put down the other gender, and the amount of like criminal things that go on like towards women from a man. I mean, I know men, you know, receive sexual abuse and everything, but the main perpetrator, when you look at the statistics, is men. And I think it's so easy to be like, well, then men are like awful, blah blah blah, but like they definitely do have all these pressures and stuff on their shoulders. I just think the more we all talk about our experiences, the more understanding there is there. And maybe, especially as girls, if we say, well, this happened to me, we can be like, well, I'm a feminist because I want to talk about it and I want equal rights. And they might hear and be like, oh, that happened, how did that make you feel? Like, what can I do in the future, and what can I tell my friends not to do in the future, and blah blah blah. But
I completely agree with all of your saying, but the thing about you saying like it's generational, I was speaking to a family friend kind of over Christmas who's probably about 65, and she said she worked in a bank for 40 years, and not one of those years was she allowed to wear trousers as a woman.
That's crazy.
And I mean, hearing it now, I think from our perspective, it's come so far, obviously, and we just think, wow, that's awful. But for her, she just thought, well, this is the way it is. Nothing that I can change. I just always have to wear a skirt. But, you know, not one that's too short, because then you're a slut.
Yeah, 100%. And I'd say like now we're more aware. I definitely think that it makes everyone more aware, and it kind of in a way creates more issues. There's like a quote by Florence Given, and she says that feminism will ruin your life, but in the best way. And I said to my mum, I said, I agree with that 100%. I said, ever since I've been so aware of all these things, I cannot go through an hour of my day without getting irritated by something and being like, that's rubbish, that's complete rubbish. And I mean, I'm very vocal about it. Like, I'm not, it's probably the one thing I actually am passionately vocal about. But I'm like, it has ruined my life a little bit. It is normal. It's definitely getting better, but I think now that we're in this is exactly my point. We're kind of in a limbo stage where we're so aware, but we're aware, but there's not really change happening to what we're aware of. Like, I don't know what's expected of me. I just know I want to be able to feel like I can walk into a room full of guys and not be the one that's uncomfortable. I want to walk into a room full of guys and make them feel uncomfortable, because I'm sure of myself, and I'm not willing to let them make me feel uncomfortable. And
Can I analyze that point?
Go ahead.
Just there? I wanted to say something earlier about going back to the whole reason why the topic of this video, which is the connotations of the word feminist and of people that say they're feminists. But that point there, I feel like I need to talk about right now, which is you want to walk in, and this, I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable, just, you know, but if you want to walk into a room and be the most confident, empowered woman in the room, do you stick by the fact that you want to make all the men in the room uncomfortable?
Yeah, because I think at the stage we're at now, I'm convinced. I mean, actually, Halsey did a poem about it. About a woman being, oh God, I can't remember the word, but it was like almost an annoyance for wanting like to do better in her job and blah, 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 and like try and be on the same level as a man. And I think throughout history, it's almost a taught thing for men to feel kind of afraid of a woman who is sure of herself, who is powerful and has the inner strength to be like, well, no, I don't agree with the patriarchal society. And I do think that makes them uncomfortable. I don't want them to feel uncomfortable in the way I would feel uncomfortable. If I was to walk into a room with men, like if there was 10 men and I walked in, I'd feel unsafe. That's just me. I would feel unsafe. I've been the victim of sexual abuse at different points in my life, and I would feel unsafe. I'd feel incredibly uncomfortable. I wouldn't want them to feel uncomfortable in that way. I would just want them to be like, God, she's a strong woman. Like, God, wow, hold up. Like, not to the same degree, but I want to reverse it a little bit, but not.
I hear what you're saying. Absolutely. But I'm trying to put myself in that situation. And in that particular scenario that you're suggesting there, I'm trying to imagine, I mean, I've been in this situation where like at a house party during like school years, I've walked into a room and it's 100% guys. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, let's see what I can do. Maybe look around, pretend like I'm looking for a friend and then walk back out. Like, what's the vibe here? Mm-hmm. But I want to walk into a room. I mean, obviously in that situation, I know some of them and some of them are my friends and some of them aren't my friends and some of them I've never spoken to before. And I'm quite a confident person. And especially in a scenario where there's music and there's low lighting and there's alcohol, like it's a lot easier to just, I'm more comfortable with myself. Mm-hmm. But if a guy walked into a room full of girls, I can't imagine that he would feel like uncomfortable in the same way. Like you might be uncomfortable because you're worried. How do I phrase this? You might feel uncomfortable because of things that have happened in the past and the sort of like masculine aggressiveness. And, you know, most of them are naturally taller. So you feel like more sort of victimized. I don't know. I'm just saying this. I'm a very small person. I'm 5'3". Sometimes I do feel automatically weaker than people in the room just because they're taller than me. They're more like broad and they're, you know, so physically I wouldn't ever want to be scared of male friends. But I've completely lost my train of thought here. I have no idea where I'm going with this, I'll be honest. I've just put myself in a scenario where I'm at a party and now I just want to go out drinking.
Oh God, I think we all do.
Shall we all?
Yes. Yeah. Everyone cheers with their cups of tea. Cheers, guys.
Oh, I don't have one.
I don't have one either.
I might add though, it's not all it's cracked up to be, being the one that makes men uncomfortable. As someone who has been told and is aware that they make men uncomfortable, and has been told that they are intimidating and dominant.
Me too.
Yeah, even though I don't view myself like that at all. Like a lot of people, and this was said to me by a first year on campus, and a lot of other people have said to me, you know, you're so friendly, the first thing you did was come up to me and smile. I know exactly what it is that makes men uncomfortable. That's the dominant, intimidating part right there. And it's just like, it doesn't matter. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and that's why I mean, it's not all it's cracked up to be, because I don't necessarily want to make anyone uncomfortable. I don't want anyone to be intimidated by me. But I do understand the point you're trying to make, Sarah, that, you know, there will be, so say we got everything we wanted and women were completely equal and everything was bliss, there would still be an adjustment period where there would be that, you know, sense of being uncomfortable, sense of kind of, you know, change. So I think I do get your point there, but I think we also need to look that there will come a time where it will just be normal. No one will be uncomfortable. It will just be normal.
I think honestly what we all aim for here. It's nothing more, nothing less. I think we all just want, like Ellie said numerous times, an equal playing field. It really isn't about one being above the other, but the way I see it is, and this is only me, like I'm not very good at explaining things either, so if I don't make sense.
Sorry, cold head.
Like I see like men are here at the moment and women are about here, and for years and years and years and years women have been trying to go like that and get better and be on the same level as men for years. You can't deny that. That's been going on forever. And the way I visualize it is that every time we take a step up, the men do too, and maybe sometimes they don't, and we're just there, but then we'll take another step and then they'll go. And I genuinely believe that the only way we're ever going to be equal is if men listen to us, hear what we have to say, and go, do you know what? Wow, like we need to take a step down a level and work at the same level and build up together. And that's the only way it's going to happen. And I think that's why like we need to get rid of all like the negative connotations of feminism, because there are extremes and there are people that are very like laxy loosey. They don't really, it's not that they don't care, because you definitely care, but you don't put as much thought into it on your everyday life, which is fine. But I strongly believe that is the only way that it's ever going to happen. And I do feel like sometimes a blunt and rather extreme conversation does need to happen. And it's not with every man, but there are some men out there that really refuse to listen. And I actually got told, I'm not going to say who said it, I was trying to have this conversation with a man, and they said to me, you do realize that men and women will never, ever, ever be equal? And I said, it doesn't matter how hard you try, it's never going to happen. And you on your own are not going to make any difference. So you reading all these feminist books and trying to be a female activist is not going to make any difference. And I'm like, well, okay, here we are. There's a group of us that all want to make a difference. Let's come together. Let's talk about these things. Let's like break all the negativity, and let's get people to listen, because I think it's so important. And no one needs to be uncomfortable, but it is an uncomfortable conversation that needs to happen.
I taught someone not long ago, I taught this maybe 50-year-old man what gaslighting was. He said something which triggered me, but it was a jokey sense. So I said, haha, don't gaslight me. And he was like, what do you mean gaslight you? And I explained to him what gaslighting was. And he had absolutely no idea what it was. He had no idea that this was even like a term for, does everyone here know what gaslighting is? Come on, we've all been gaslit before. My brother, okay, for example, my brother would say, you don't need a sandwich, you're fat. And I'm like, well, that's not true. I'm hungry. And basically gaslighting, what he's doing is he's releasing the gas, and he lit it so it would make me angry. And this is a technique unknowingly used by a lot of emotional abusers in relationships, where they would intentionally make their partner feel uncomfortable, or God, I wish I had the definition. Actually, fuck this. I'm going to get the definition up. Okay. Gaslighting is a form, I should have done this from the start. It's a form of emotional abuse seen in an abusive relationship. It's the act of manipulating a person by forcing them to question their thoughts, memories, and even events occurring around them. A victim of gaslighting can be pushed so far that they question their own sanity.
Oh God, I could think of so many examples now you said that.
Yeah, no, it's really, really common. I mean, people do it all the time. My terrible example of a sandwich, my brother saying, you shouldn't have a sandwich because you're fat. If I heard that every day, I would be like, oh shit, like I should stop eating bread. I should stop eating so much.
I did hear that every day over Christmas. So
I mean, Christmas is different. Everyone's fat.
No, but the actual words, you don't need that extra food, do you, Charlotte?
Yeah.
That direct quote.
Oh. Don't get me.
Just tell them to fuck off that you're hibernating for the winter and you need some.
I mean, I guess that's just another thing to talk about, because like you said, Ella, a lot of the time they don't actually know they're doing it.
Yeah, they have no idea. And that's the thing, is because I'm going to use the example of older men in my close circle, as in like family and friends, because that's the best example I can give. But in the times when I have been told things like that, it's because and I'm trying really hard not to make an excuse for these guys, but that's the way they were raised. Thinking about it, I'm like, I don't want to need men. I never want to need a man. I don't want the help from them. But if they are the CEOs of this generation, they need to employ the women. They need to forget, oh, I want a family or I have blue hair. You know, they need to do that to help us to get up there.
100%. And also, I
agree.
I'd say, you say you don't want to need men, but you know, regardless of whether or not you believe in God, there are men and women.
Different conversation. Hold the phone.
There are men and women on this earth for a reason. If it was meant to be all men, it would be all men. If it was meant to be all women, it would be all women. Because we've gone through years and years and years of change and development as mammals, animals, whatever. If it was meant to be one gender, it would be one gender. And so yes, we do need men, but men also need us. And like, yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if you'd finished your point, so I don't want to.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Sorry. Kind of changing the topic, but I think something else that really needs to be kind of broken down almost if we're going to proceed is the way that heterosexual relationships are viewed and the gender roles in both of those, like as a woman, as a man in a heterosexual relationship, and how the man, as you're saying, Sarah, is like up here. I think a lot of that to do with that is because a man is told he is the person who makes the money. He's the person
provider,
who's in charge of the family, and he's given so much kind of street cred isn't the right word. You know, he's given so much like presence because he knows like that is his job, and people have described that's his job. And I think it's also linked to before. I think it was Ellie you were saying about height, or see, I'm 6'2", which yeah, you can't tell because we're on Zoom. But I have, like Charlotte was saying, been called intimidating so many times. And it always confuses me because I think I'm a really approachable person and I'm pretty friendly. And it's the fact that I'm 6'2" that a lot of men in my life have just been so like emasculated and confused, you know, a lot of short men especially. So I think once we kind of get to that level where it doesn't matter if the man's taller and it doesn't matter if the man is the one who makes the woman or the woman, and the woman doesn't do all the cleaning, and just kind of a relationship to be equal.
No, I agree, and I think that once we're all equal, and it's a kind of a shame that it kind of comes down to women to sort of start the process a little bit, because like we said, they need to listen to us first and all of them to understand, and then get them down, blah blah blah. But once we're on an equal level, I think it will benefit both genders, because I think Eilish said like there is a lot on both genders that like is suppressed, and I think even just the like men have body image issues just as much as women, but they don't talk about it. And it is like, you think about, I've got another book actually, let me get it.
I think that's a really good topic to cover, is women, us as women, talking about the stories that we've heard about like guys in a confidential situation sharing their emotions. Because I've had times where I've been alone with a friend and they're like, yo, I'm really not doing well, or this girl's made me feel like this, and they'll start crying, or they'll be upset, or tell me that they're going to therapy or taking antidepressants, and they'll be really ashamed about it. And that sucks, like big time. I mean, you're allowed to be ashamed about anything, but I've had many situations where I've been with a guy and he's shared something with me, and then he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, like I'm so sorry, I'm so emotional. I'm like, bro, like
you're allowed to be. It's human. But I mean, this book is Reasons to Stay Alive by Matt Haig, and he was depressed. I think he had generalized anxiety disorder, and he basically wanted to kill himself, and he speaks a lot about that and like why he felt like he had to, like that was the only option, and he speaks a lot about like even just the emotional side of it, but also the statistical side of like women struggle with just as many things as men. Men struggle with just as many things as women, but women are more likely to ask for help, and men are more likely to actually kill themselves, because more often than not, and it's a very clear, it's literally like in your face, you can tell the only reason that the male, not the only reason, but a very high significant reason of why males are more likely to kill themselves is because they don't talk. Because genuinely, the same way like it kind of works negatively for both genders, but the sort of like the generational sort of thing that's come down, like it does affect men as well. That's the whole point. And like if we remain like men, women, they're never going to talk about their issues either. There's a hand.
I've just had
sorry.
a thought, like a story's kind of came to mind. It was a paper that we were looking at in class, and it was about like why like men become like I can't say it, perpetrators. And how it doesn't really make sense why as a child they might have witnessed abuse for them to go and do it themselves. So I'm trying to articulate this well. So basically the child subconsciously blames the mother because that's their first attachment. So the mum is always the first attachment. So when the child sees the mom being abused, they're obviously scared and hurt and want to protect her, but on a subconscious level they're angry at her for not keeping them safe and protecting them as a child. So then they have like a subconscious hate towards their mother, so women, and then they become a perpetrator themselves.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's like crazy to me.
so I think it lies in the subconscious of like men, so awareness around this, and their maybe subconscious hate for women because they weren't nurtured or they didn't have their needs met. So it's kind of, you know.
I really love this point, and I've got so many things that I'd like to like ask questions about and talk about, but I feel like we've really drifted from the topic.
I won't say that, but I mean,
I think it's good that we've drifted. I think it's the only way that a conversation sort of flows naturally, and for everyone to feel comfortable to talk about what they've learned. I mean, if we hadn't gone down this route, we wouldn't have just learned about that subconscious thing, which is really interesting.
So many doors, like.
Yeah, I butchered the flow of the vibe there.
It's fine. I think we probably should draw it to a close sometime soon.
I don't want to.
I found it really, really interesting. I think like having this discussion, and everyone apart from Sarah I didn't know, so nice to meet you.
It was nice to meet you too.
Yeah, it's lovely to chat to you all.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Hope to see you in the next video.
See you. Bye.